Hello, it is Saturday the 5th of May 2018, and in this video I'm going to show you what's going on the Lotto at the moment. Now, the latest result was this one. Now, you might notice, if you've been watching these videos before, that the spreadsheet I'm using is now running a lot slower than it did before, and the reason why is because I've expanded it. Now, the latest result, this one, was machine mailing, set of balls 5, and this is a chart for that machine, and this is a new section down here at the bottom, and this is the probabilities. Now I can turn that on or off, and what that does is it looks at how many numbers are in each square and how many numbers we're looking at, and it works out what the probability is of a number dropping from each column to land in each square at the bottom. But it goes a bit further, because once it knows the probabilities of numbers landing in these squares, it can reiterate the process to calculate the probabilities for each row afterwards, and so we get a chance to see what the probability field looks like. So that's projecting into the future. That's like a rough guess. Now, this is the chart showing where the numbers were in relation to each other in terms of frequency and the last draw that they appeared in. And on this chart you can see number 38 is the one that's most overdue for its frequency, and that's one of the numbers that came out. So I could have predicted that. If we look at a chart for that number and that machine and those sets of balls and the full draw history, then what we get now is this chart. You can see where the winning numbers were on that chart. But anyway, never mind that. I'm going to show you this new section, and what this does is it looks at the gap chart for each number. I'll just show you what a gap chart looks like. Just pick any number. And this is the gap chart for that number. And we'll look at all machines, all sets of balls, full draw history, and this is a gap chart for that number. Now, as you can see, there's been 6 consecutive occurrences. The last one was in draw 2273, and there's been also 6 occasions where it's missed one draw and then come out in the next one. That's happened 6 times. And then same with 4 draws. And the current gap at the moment is a gap of 11 draws without any occurrence. So if it comes out in the next draw, it will have been 11 draws since it last occurred. Now that gap has occurred twice. So we've got 2286 and frequency 2. Now let me just show you what this does on this chart when I put it in gap mode. Now what that does is, instead of rearranging the numbers according to their own frequency and when they were last drawn, instead it arranges them by the frequency and the last draw of the current gap between occurrences for each number. So if we find number 54, then remember it was frequency of 2 and a gap, and the last time that occurred was 226. So it's done the same for every number. Put all the numbers where they are in relation to each other in terms of the current gap between occurrences. Now, to make things more interesting, what I'm going to do is, instead of looking at when the gap last occurred, I'm going to look at when the number last occurred, because I would expect that the current gap, if it's a bigger gap, it'll be less frequent. If it's a smaller gap, it'll be more frequent. And what we should get is a curve that goes down from the top left down to the bottom right. And that's what this chart looks like. Not that chart, actually, this chart. Yeah, that's the one. That's what it looks like. So, as you would expect, when the current gap between occurrences is a large gap, then the frequency of occurrences of that gap between occurrences is lower. So larger gaps happen less often, and smaller gaps are much more frequent. So we get this curve, as you would expect. Now this is just a very rough approximation of the curve. In fact, there's actually 2 curves on this graph, and I'll show you how I know that there's 2 curves. If we narrow it down to just the recent history since the numbers went up to 59, that means we're only looking at less than 300 draws, and after less than 300 draws, this is what the chart looks like. You notice the curve is very short doesn't go right across. So it's if you're looking at full draw history, obviously they've had time to spread out further. So that means that the numbers that were added in draw 2066, when it went up to 59, that's these numbers here, and they've not had time to spread out as far. And that's why they're all bunched up on this side, while the other numbers have spread out. Now, if we look at the draw before the last draw, notice these numbers at the bottom watch them be rearranged quite a lot. So from one draw to the next, the ones at the bottom move about a lot in relation to each other, but the ones at the top, because it's a bigger gap, can't move as far because it's trapped by this curve. So these numbers stay in roughly the same place, but you notice the ones at the bottom, they can jump from one side to the other, from draw to draw, and that's because of the sort of randomness of the arrangement of the gaps on the gap chart. So for this number, as you can see, gap of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's what you'd expect. You'd expect to see smaller gaps being more frequent, larger ones being less frequent. And the randomness is due to the fluctuations in how long it is since each gap occurred. And so we get this chart where the numbers at the bottom move about randomly from one draw to the next. Now, if we look at this chart showing just where the numbers are in terms of their own frequency and how long it is since they last occurred, then you can see these ones are the most overdue. So we're looking at it from another angle when we're looking at it like this. So it's like a three-dimensional shape, three-dimensional graph. Now, if we look at it from the side again, and look at full draw history, all machines and all sets of balls, see how long it takes to process. It takes a long time. But anyway, I'm looking at it like this. I noticed that number 33 is kind of standing out from the curve, so I think that that one's due to occur. Now if you look at a normal chart, and this is for recent history, and it's for recent history, and it's all the machines, all the sets of balls that have been used since the numbers went up to 59. Number 33 is the slowest number as well, so it needs to catch up to the rest of the numbers. But when we look at it like this, and we just look at the current trend, which is machines 5 to 8 machines mailing an offer sets of balls 5 to 8. When we look at it like this, then you can see number 33 is the most overdue. So that means it's probably the most likely number to occur in the next draw, which is tonight. So let's have a look at this chart. So you can see 33 is most overdue on this chart as well, but we'll see where its gap is. Let's see, where's number 33? There it is, current gap yet to occur. So anyway, my money's going to be on number 33. Until it comes out. So I'm just going to put one line on that number. If it don't come out after 5 draws, put 2 lines on, and I'll eventually make a profit, as long as it don't take too long to come out. So let's just have a look at the probabilities. So these areas are where the numbers are most likely to land. So there's more combinations that fit that configuration than any other for this chart. So if 33 does come out, there's a 20% chance one of the numbers from this column will be ending up in that square. So anyway, that concludes this video. Subscribe for the next one, and bye for now.